Hello, everybody, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Monday, March 1st, 2021. On today's episode, we're going to discuss the latest film and TV news. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
Senior Writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
And Writer Chris Evangelisa. Chris, you there?
I sure am. I'm sorry. I was on mute.
That's fine. It's Monday. We're having a case of the Mondays, right?
Yeah.
And yesterday was the Golden Globe Awards, which I don't think any of us watched except for Brad. But Brad, you were covering for the site. So tell me, how was the show? Because the show was weird.
Oh, Peter, let me tell you, it was a thrill and a half. It was so wonderful watching this 3-hour ceremony unfold virtually with many technical gaffes. And it was not good. I usually have a decent amount of fun watching the Golden Globes, even though, it's one of the more meaningless award shows. It's an excuse for Hollywood to get drunk and have fun and glad hand each other and pat each other's backs. And they were definitely still doing that this time, but obviously the wind is kind of sucked out of the room because it's, virtual and not very exciting. And so it was just, it was rough. They had right out of the gate for the first award, for Best Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture Drama, or just motion picture in general. Daniel Kaluuya won, and he started talking, and the audio was gone. And so then they were trying to figure out what happened, and then they finally got him back to give his speech. But it just set the tone for the whole night, and it wasn't like downright terrible, I guess. Tina Fey and Amy Poehler made it fun. Barb and Star showed up at one point, which I was super excited about. But yeah, otherwise, the awards, themselves were fine. On the movie side of things, Nomadland and Borat subsequent Moviefilm walked away with the awards for motion picture drama and motion picture musical or comedy, respectively. On the TV side, The Crown and Schitt's Creek took home the top prizes for drama and comedy. And Queen's Gambit walked away with the miniseries / limited series, anthology series, what have you, award. And so, yeah, those were the big ones for the night. The acting categories had a fair number of surprises. It was very cool to see Chadwick Boseman get the posthumous award for his performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And his wife gave a really emotional, heartfelt acceptance speech on his behalf through many tears. Some surprises were Andra Day winning for the United States versus Billie Holiday. Rosamund Pike for I Care a Lot. Sacha Baron Cohen won for Borat subsequent Moviefilm as an actor, and Jodie Foster took home a supporting actress award for The Mauritanian. The acting award seemed really all over the place. So yeah, it was just kind of weird. Oh, and Jason Sudeikis won for Ted Lasso, which was awesome. He seemed genuinely shocked and speechless by his win too. So all in all, it's just, the biggest problem I think with this award show was just that we're all on Zoom a lot nowadays, and so watching the award show unfold on Zoom, in such a haphazard way, just isn't nearly as fun as it is, to watch the normal ceremony. And so it was just messy.
I kind of wonder, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association is often criticized, when they award these awards, it's because they've hobnobbed with these celebrities and stuff, and they usually typically give awards to the people that hung out with them at parties and stuff. This year, there were no parties, or were there Skype or Zoom parties?
Well, so it seemed like some people had others in their house that they weren't always on screen with them. Like when Jodie Foster won, you could hear the people who were hanging out in her house react in a delayed fashion because of the delay of the feed, I think, to when she won. Kate Hudson had pretty much her entire family there with her. There was one shot where you could see Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn and all of their family members huddled together around the couch, which is cool social distancing. But
hey, it's a bubble. It's a personal family bubble. I'm sure they don't leave their house.
Yeah, though. I'm sure all of them don't leave their house. And then the other thing it was awkward and funny is that Tina Fey and Amy Poehler didn't shy away from the criticism that the Hollywood Foreign Press Association had been facing recently once it came out that the organization doesn't have a single black member, a part of its voting body. And so there were jokes made about that, and the Hollywood Foreign Press Association addressed it themselves by having 3 of the members come out and say that they would be making an effort to, have more diversity and yada yada yada. But it just
Did they say we are friends with lots of black people?
that's exactly what they said. But yeah, so and they for what it's worth, and whether this was on purpose or whether this would have happened or not, they did hand out an awful lot of awards to diverse talents, including many of the black actors and filmmakers who were nominated this year. So, who knows if they made a concerted effort to do that after the criticism. But either way, what the awards that were handed out were very deserving for everybody who won them. For the most part, at least, I'm not sure that I'm on board with Rosamund Pike winning for Best Actress, Musical or Comedy, but whatever.
Well, you talked about the winners. You talked about the surprises. Who are the big losers?
The Hollywood Foreign
other
Press
than the audience that
Association,
watched
probably.
us. Yeah.
The HFPA, I think, is probably a pretty big loser. I'm not sure that there really were any other big losers per se. I know. I guess you could say also Emily and Perry, as they want you to say it, since there was that whole controversy about the Hollywood Foreign Press, kind of getting wined and dined, and then they didn't win anything at all. But yeah, I would say just. Yeah, we're all probably worse off for this year's Golden Globes.
I think Richard Rushfield, who writes this newsletter called The Ankler, he put it really well in one of his recent editions where he said, there's no way to talk about the Golden Globes without becoming smaller. If you take it seriously, you're a fool. If you're outraged about it, you're a humorless buffoon. If you're outraged about the outrage, then what the hell are you doing with your life? Get a real hobby or something. So I think that pretty much sums it up.
That is great. Okay, we had one big news story that hit last Friday, I think. We recorded the WandaVision podcast for that day, but there is a new Superman reboot in development from producer J.J. Abrams. Chris, what do we know?
We know that Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is a really great acclaimed writer, he wrote a book called Between the World and Me, and he's written Black Panther comics, is writing the script for a new Superman, and we know that the intention is for this to be a black Superman, which would be a huge deal. It'd be a first for movies. And that's really all we know at the moment. J.J. Abrams is producing it. We don't know who's going to direct it. There was some talk that J.J. Abrams might direct it, but it doesn't seem like that's happening. And of course, J.J. Abrams actually wrote his own Superman script a few years ago called Superman Flyby, which was really weird and tried to retcon the entire mythology. At the very end, it turned out that Lex Luthor was also from Krypton and he had superpowers and all this stuff. And obviously that film never got made. So this is a pretty cool thing. It's a big deal. We don't really know how this is going to fit in with the overarching Warner Brothers DC lineup, but they've already pretty much established that there are alternate worlds. There's the whole Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, which has nothing to do with the DCEU Joker, which is still Jared Leto. So they've already done a pretty good job establishing that they're going to have alternate universes, alternate characters, alternate actors. So that's not to say the Henry Cavill Superman is over and done with, but as of now, this is the Superman movie that's currently in development.
Do you think that this will just be presented as this is the one and only Superman in this world, or do you think they'll go the comic book route where there was other Supermen?
I kind of think they'll probably do a thing where they're going to say this is one Superman in one timeline and we can have another Superman in another timeline, but that's really just guesswork on my part. I don't really know how it's going to shake out in the end.
Well, speaking of guesswork, I want to ask, who do you think should play Superman?
There are a lot of great options. I think maybe it was in 2018, a rumor surfaced that Warner Brothers was considering a Superman movie starring Michael B. Jordan. And while he's not attached to this version, I think that would be a great idea. Jacob Hall, our editor, suggested Jonathan Majors. That's another great option. I've seen people suggest John Boyega. So there are so many exciting choices out there, and I'm very curious to see who they pick.
Yeah, I think John Boyega was involved in trying to develop a Black Superman movie, and I don't think that happened. But I'm wondering Oh, maybe he could be the guy for JJ or whatever.
I mean, they do have, they have a history of working together, so yeah, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, you mentioned Michael B. Jordan, and there was this weird story this week that Ryan Coogler once pitched a Coming to America sequel starring Michael B. Jordan. Brad, tell us about that.
Yes, back. I think this was after Black Panther, or before he directed Black Panther, rather. Ryan Coogler apparently approached Eddie Murphy with an idea to do a sequel that would have had Michael B. Jordan playing Eddie Murphy's son, but it would have been not quite the same plot as the new one, since it would have been more of a kind of a legacy sequel kind of thing, where it would have focused on Michael B. Jordan's character trying to find a wife in America, following the same path that Eddie Murphy's character did in the original movie. And so apparently, even though Eddie Murphy, was flattered and whatnot and interested in working with Ryan Coogler, they weren't too keen on just treading the same territory that they did before. So ultimately it didn't come together, but now we're waiting for the actual Coming number 2 America to arrive on Amazon, I think this Friday, actually.
Yeah, it almost seems like from this quote that Eddie Murphy was disappointed that the movie wouldn't star him, like that he wouldn't be like the big star of a big part of the movie.
Yeah, I would imagine that would probably be the case. That's definitely his franchise, and I'm sure it was a little bit of a bummer to have an idea and be like, well, you would take the backseat, and now Michael B. Jordan would be the star. So
yeah, well, Ryan Coogler used that idea for another franchise, and it worked out pretty well, I hear. But okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Doctor Strange 2. There's an actor online that's been heavily implying that he will have an appearance in this Marvel Cinematic Universe sequel. Ben, what do we know?
Yeah, so Bruce Campbell, who has worked with Sam Raimi a bunch of times, and Raimi, of course, is directing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Bruce Campbell has recently tweeted a photo of a skyline, which certainly appears to be the city of London, and he says, boy, it was a blast working in a certain city with a certain director on a certain movie with a certain actor. It sure was. So it's very much a Bruce Campbell-esque tweet there, very much like in his style of comedy. But yeah, I mean, it's super vague. It's provocative on purpose. And I think the expectation from basically everyone who sees that tweet is, of course, Bruce Campbell is going to show up in Doctor Strange 2 because of that working relationship that he's had with Sam Raimi since the mid 1970s. I mean, those guys go back, quite a long ways. And of course, Bruce Campbell showed up in all 3 of the Spider-Man movies that Sam Raimi directed in the early to mid 2000s. So there's some precedent there for Campbell showing up in Raimi directed Marvel related content. So yeah, I mean, I would not be remotely surprised if he drops by for, just a cameo or a very small role in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah. Well, like you said, this is the Multiverse of Madness, and there's rumors that there'll be other Spider-Men like Tobey Maguire, maybe Andrew Garfield. It makes me wonder, will Bruce Campbell be reprising his role as the announcer in the wrestling ring from Spider-Man 1?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I don't know. I have not delved into the like deep fan theories on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films, but I wonder if there is a theory out there that the character that he plays might be the same character across all 3 of the movies in that original trilogy, because like you mentioned, that first film, he plays the announcer who actually gives Spider-Man his name. And then he plays a doorman at a theater in the second movie. And then in the third movie, he plays a maitre d' at like a fancy, I think it's a French restaurant. So I wonder if there are fan theories that like that same guy, it's the same character, but he got different jobs throughout, over the years, and he just happens to show up at important moments in Peter Parker's life. So I don't know if it's actually going to be, that same person who just shows up, or if he's going to, maybe take on a more well-known role. I saw somebody on Twitter respond to Campbell's tweet with like a photoshopped image of Bruce Campbell as Nick Fury, which I thought was kind of a cool idea, even if it's just complete nonsense and like, fan casting galore. But, when you're talking about a multiverse, literally anything is possible. So I wouldn't put it past them to try something, crazy and provocative that'll get fans talking like that if they wanted to pull something off.
as much as they're friends and Sam Raimi gives Campbell these roles, it's never like a a guy in the background. It's always like a significant cameo role, like as you said, the announcer that basically named Spider-Man, or the guy that kicks him out in Spider-Man 2. So I'm wondering, yeah, I could totally see a Nick Fury like that. That would be awesome. I'd be excited to see that. And if you've never actually heard like Bruce Campbell tell the stories of all these things, like his obviously his the whole making of the Evil Dead movies, or like his fabled career as a character actor and doing cameos in these films and stuff. I know he has a bunch of books out. I've seen him talk in person, and he's one of those guys that like Kevin Smith, or Eli Roth, I guess, that I actually like hearing them tell stories more than like the movies that they're in, or they make. I don't know. Maybe that's probably the worst backhanded compliment I can give them. But I would say check that out if you're into Bruce Campbell, because he has some great stories. But let's talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is heading to HBO Max. And when this was first reported that the Snyder cut was going to be happening, there was all sorts of rumors of his original cut had this huge massive cliffhanger. The fans were basically like, no, that was a previous version. That was when he was doing 2 movies during production. They decided only to do 1 movie. There's no cliffhanger. This is a definitive film with a beginning, middle, and end. And now we're going to get it, and we're going to be happy, and then we'll move on with our lives. I don't think they said that, but Ben, is that not happening?
Well, Zack Snyder over this past weekend told IGN that, quote, "It is a cliffhanger. The movie ends in a massive cliffhanger." Yeah. So, yes, all of those fans, I'm sorry to disappoint you if you were hoping for a, fully contained, complete experience here. But I think, yeah, like you mentioned, Peter, we've sort of known this for a long time. It's been like bubbling in the, just under the surface. Like there have been reports about this, but now Snyder himself is like coming out and saying it. So hearing it from, their prophet himself, maybe will finally change the minds of these folks who have been, convinced, I guess, that there will be no cliffhanger ending in this movie. There definitely is going to be a cliffhanger here. There are a couple other little interesting bits in this article, Peter, that I don't know if you just want to like tease for listeners to click on it and go listen. But there's the dynamic between Batman and Deathstroke is going to be very, very different in the Snyder cut than it was in the theatrical cut of Justice League, where Deathstroke was the character played by Joe Manganiello, who showed up at the very, very end of the movie, and he teams up with Lex Luthor in a post-credit sequence, and they tease the formation of this Injustice League, this team of villains to counter the new team of superheroes that just appeared in that movie. And the Snyder cut is going to be doing something very, very different. So if you'd like to read more about that, you can click on the link in the show notes. And there's some other stuff there about Snyder potentially maybe what he would do if he was asked to direct a Justice League 2. So yeah, there's some other stuff there that you can click around, and I encourage you to do that.
What is Warner Brothers and HBO thinking here? Because they kind of got Warner Brothers kind of got bullied by this big fan group to like release the Snyder cut, and they're releasing it. I'm happy to see it. I'm very curious to see what it's like, and it seems like HBO is gonna get some subscribers off of it, so they're benefiting. But is there really any benefit to like releasing the Snyder cut with a massive cliffhanger that's will get fans, very upset if and when they don't get the sequel?
I mean, I kind of have to think that Warner Brothers executives or whoever, HBO Max people, whoever's making this decision is just saying, okay, we're going to throw these people a bone and give them what they've been asking. And then, if they come back with like another wave of like a targeted campaign to try to continue this further, we can always just be like, hey, beggars can't be choosers. Like we gave in once, like, isn't that enough kind of thing? So I'm not sure about that. And Snyder himself, for what it's worth, has been like very diplomatic in terms of a potential Justice League 2. He's like gone out of his way to say, I don't think it's going to happen, like trying to set the expectations low. And he knows that his fans are like hanging on his every word. So the fact that he's saying that over and over and over again, I feel like is important in this context. But he was asked if he would return to direct a Justice League 2, and he said, that's very hypothetical. I think that I would say I would believe it when I see it, and I'd be happy to cross that bridge when I see it approaching. So even he seems like it's a very much a long shot, but he's sort of leaving the door open in case something happens. But I just personally, HBO Max gave him $70 million to do the visual effects work and all the kind of touch-ups and stuff. A couple little scenes or one scene actually of additional photography for this movie. 70 million just for that. I mean, you have to think that a full budget for Justice League 2 would be way more than that. And I just don't know if that's something that Warner Brothers is looking to invest in at this time. So I would not hold my breath for a second Justice League movie.
I mean, part of me wonders if HBO Max would want to it seems like Disney does these things and everybody tries to copy them. Everybody tries to replicate, the successful Disney formula, and what they're doing with Marvel right now is kind of incredible. They're basically doing these Marvel movies that are cut up into like 6 or 9 episodes of television, and I wonder if they see the opportunity if enough people subscribe to try to do that with Zack Snyder and a continuation of the Snyder Cut. But on the other hand, how do you even make that possible? Because this is a company that's owned by Warner Brothers. So there's that whole Ray Fisher thing that's going on. Do they want to work with him again? Does Ben Affleck want to put back on the suit? Probably not.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Like, if Affleck is contractually obligated for a Justice League 2 still, or if he's been able to, he and Gal Gadot and everybody, if they've been able to sort of, weasel their way out of that because the first movie did not live up to expectations, and maybe that those contracts have lapsed or something. I'm curious about like the language in those contracts. If for some reason Zack Snyder is, granted the keys to a Justice League 2, if those guys would be like required to come back. I don't know. I'm curious.
Well, those people did participate in that like online social media campaign of sorts.
I'm also wondering, because there was that whole thing with the original Superman, like Richard Donner's Superman movie, where like that film was I don't remember the exact details, but it had to do with the movie being split into 2, and like there were basically it sort of helped rewrite the rules for like actors receiving residuals and royalties and all that stuff for appearing in what they were told was going to be one project, and then it was actually split up over multiple projects. So I'm curious about like the pay structure for the Snyder Cut, because these people theoretically, Ben Affleck and et cetera, already received money for showing up in the theatrical cut. Were they supporting the release of Snyder Cut movement because they're getting paid an additional fee to appear in, Zack Snyder's Justice League, or were they just doing it because they have a good relationship with Snyder and they wanted to, to see him, his vision come to life? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of questions I have that are like behind the scenes things that I don't know if we're ever going to really find the answer to.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine if you're one of those actors, you're kind of like, oh, I already did my thing, or I got to come back for one day. Like, yeah, sure. Go do it. Like what's the worst that can happen? People like it more than the thing that people didn't like. I mean, I guess the worst that could happen is people see it and they're like, oh my God, this is so much worse than we ever imagined. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're an agent though, I have to imagine like, there's all this unused footage of your client that is now being presented to the world. I feel like you could argue that that constitutes a whole different performance. So I don't know. I wonder what would happen there. If anybody listening is like, an entertainment lawyer and has any thoughts about this, I would love to hear them if you want to email us at peter@slashfilm.com.
Yeah. I will say this, that for most of Zack Snyder's films, he does release on home video a Snyder cut or a director's cut or I think they're mostly called extended cuts. So maybe that's in the contract that they're allowed to release an extended cut for home video, and maybe now home video equates to HBO Max.
Oh yeah, could be.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, we have one final story for you today, and that is that the Terminator series is going to continue, even though everybody probably just wants it to die at this point. It's going to continue as an anime series. Chris, tell us about it.
Yes, Netflix already has a few anime shows that have been spun off of movies. They have a Godzilla anime. They have an upcoming Pacific Rim anime. There's a Tomb Raider anime in the works, and now there is also a Terminator anime from Mattson Tomlin, who co-wrote the upcoming The Batman. He's serving as showrunner on this series. We don't know a whole lot about it. We just know that it's a Terminator anime series, and in a statement, Tomlin said he's going to approach Terminator in a way that, quote, breaks conventions, subverts expectations, and has real guts. So, yeah, that's what we know.
So, do we have any idea when this will be set in the Terminator mythology?
No, there's really nothing. Even, I'm guessing. I don't even know. I don't even know where you go with Terminator. I keep I want to say it'll probably be set in the future, because that just seems like where the series is going at this point, where it'll be set in the post-apocalyptic landscape where the machines have risen, but they just keep changing the timeline. Like, it's every movie is almost like a reboot at this point, where they're just like, all right, well, Judgment Day didn't happen, but this other thing happened. And they just keep fucking around with it. That it's very hard to keep track of where it's going to be at this point.
Yeah, I feel like if you do any of the time travel stuff, it's going to be too repetitive of what they've already done in these movies, and it's so complicated. I think if you just fast forward to the future war, then there's maybe some interesting stuff to be done there. And it's, doing an anime allows you to do these big spectacular things that would probably be very costly in a live action movie. I'm not sure. Have you seen any of these anime series from Netflix, Chris?
No, I'm not into anime, so I just don't really watch them.
I haven't watched many of them, but I've heard great things about the Godzilla one. There's like a Transformers one that's supposedly good. So I don't know. It seems like people seem to like these anime series, and maybe this is the direction to.
I mean, it can't be any worse than the sequels at this point. So maybe they'll do something fresh and exciting with Terminator. You never know.
Okay, that brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. You can find more of all of our work at slashfilm.com. You can find this podcast on Apple, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to us at peter@slashfilm.com. And please rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.